to speak about and acknowledge. But I don't think we actually understand this common and universally held ideology. And what is ideology? Ideology is an idea, okay? So the root is the idea, or the core is idea. And ology is just putting in, taken away from parts of philosophy. Uh, and which can be applied to theology and whatever other ideology we can possibly name. But the core is that we've taken, you take something that's an idea, which has philosophical merits that apply to all, and you put a sort of a religious spin on it. Well, actually, no, not sort of, a religious spin on it. Uh, Something that is to be revered, deified, um, respected above all. Um, you know, so theology is, and I've said this before, theology is nothing more than taking um, philosophical ideas, then putting reverence behind it and reverence and worship behind it. And so, but theology often uh, takes philosophical ideology that has core root values that's universal and then spins it on its head and basically turns what is universally good and acceptable concepts that universally helps all and promotes a better understanding and turns it on its head, because then they start getting into the more projective um aspects of our worst nature, and that is greed and and all the other things that the Ten Commandments and which is something that the Christian Bible does not solely state, because it's in uh, Buddhism, it's in Muslim, it's in Jewish, it's even in the old tribal religions of Native Americans, and it's in Wiccan. Uh, and Wiccan is, they've made it sound like devil worship and so on and so forth. But basically, Wiccan is just a offshoot of more tribalistic times, where worship uh, of uh, of the of those died ancestors, and the worship of ancestors and land, and the and the air, and basically worship of nature, and that's what Wiccan is. That's in a nutshell. It's the worship of the natural processes of life, and how the natural process of life benefits us all universally. So, anyways, this leads me to one of the revered things that aren't considered religious and aren't considered a religion, but touches directly on what I've just said about how universal philosophies that have been turned on its head, and that is freedom. It's something that we all universally know, or we think we know, but we don't really understand, because you can't have freedom in a reality in which they often call society. I mean, a societal system, or an economic system, or capitalistic system, or any of those sort of systems. You can't have it. Freedom does not exist. It's an illusion. If you're only free to espouse the ideology and the theology and the philotheology of the few, because that's what all systems is about. All systems are based on giving the resources, the will, and the power, and the way we think in the control of others, a few minority. They we have here we're hearing a lot about old ideas like Marxism, socialism, communism versus capitalism versus fundamentalism. You know, all these old things, and what we presently hold and buy into, they're all false. There is no difference between fascism and fundamentalism, because in both fascism and in fundamentalism, it basically boils down to a nutshell that the few get to dictate and control everything. And when I say everything, it's how you think, how you live, how much you get in that system, and what status in that system you hold. In fundamentalism, which is basically talking about monarchies and dictatorial authoritarianism, dictatorialism, all that. That's all it comes down to. Capitalism is the same. The only difference between capitalism and fundamentalism and fascism is that there is the illusion that you have freedom, that you can succeed, and that you can move up the ladder, when that is objectively and reality-based false. It's a complete lie. There is no false. There is falsehood, but it's just a lie, a plain lie. They like to put fancy words like propaganda behind it, but it isn't. The plain fact of the matter is in any system that can create inequality and unbalance will always help the few. And everything that capitalists that hold power and influence, whether you call them corporations or the ultra wealthy or the media, or even the small players like Spencer and the alt-right and the neo-Nazis, those are the ones who do the betraying, who do the horrifying things that we all universally acknowledge is a bad thing. And it hurts us in a global way, not just in human lives, but in the very foundations, the core of what life is. You cannot have life when uncontrolled poisoning of the very home, the very firmament, and when I say firmament, I mean the actual planet, the world that we call Earth. You cannot have freedom if we give control and if we buy into the illusion of freedom, into the illusion of having life, when the few control it all and keep us in a static, stationary, and unevolved and unrevolutionary place where we do not move. It does not matter if we can use these gadgets like the smartphone I'm doing this. It does not apply because this gadget is just a tool. And we've used tools and animals that we so look down upon as being so unevolved, as being lesser when they use tools. And they have been using tools. Just because we are clever does not make us evolved. Evolution and revolution must take place within each and every one of us. We must first be aware, not just of ourselves, but how we contribute and impact the home we live in. And that means being conscious of each and every one of us, and not just the communities that we live in, and not just the color that we come in, and not just the way our eyes are shaped, and not just the way we physically look that could be contributed to unappealing to others. Because the core in humanity and evolution means that we pay more attention to what's under the skin and under the bones. But that's becoming harder and harder and harder to do because we are all universally struggling. Well, almost all of us are universally struggling because the few who want the fascist or fundamentalist um, privilege, and privilege means that, oh, we have the right to dictate how you should feel, how you should think, how you should live. And it does not matter how unequal and unjust it is. You know, a lot of information is coming out and bombarding us all. And it's something that that Democracy Now! Did a brilliant interview with two people, Chilean who's a Chilean American and a Vietnamese American, and they're both in academics, and they're both writers, and they touched upon something that I have I have come to acknowledge to be a universal truth is that when we follow logic and reason that is self-destructive, and we allow these fascists and fundamentalists and these ultra privileged, these self-appointed ultra privileged to narrate and dictate and move us in a direction that benefits them and them alone, then we are culpable in our own self destruction, in our own murder our own rape, our own inequalities. Basically, everything that we are angry and stressed, we can contribute. We are the contributors. We are the conspirators because we have ignored and thereby become ignorant. And the thing is not all of it. I can't simply state that we are the simple cause because that's not the truth. The truth is that we have had a system where actual evolutionary and revolutionary idea and thereby ideology that is based on philosophical and universal truths or truisms, rather truisms, universal philosophical truisms that actually have a basis in reality. When we are attacked on a foundation or fundamental root on core by keeping us ignorant, by taking away the advantages of evolutionary and revolutionary thinking, which ties in with emotions, which ties in with bad ideas and ideology that is self destructive. So when they take that and they're attacking the, when they're talking about economics, when they're talking about education, when they're talking about social social good, the good of the all, good of the many, when there is a concerted attack by these fundamentalists, by these fascists, and remember that this is about the few who are the proclaimed arbitrators of how each and every one of us and where we are in station in life, what class we have, how we live, what we eat, what we consume, what we learn, what we read, how we think, and how our emotional responses should be, and how to look upon our very home, the one most true home that we have, the one that sustains us all, not just humans, but animals, plants, and everything, right down to the microbial level. So ask yourself, are you actually free? Is free speech actually what you think it means? Because if you have free speech, but you're being told that the fascists and the fundamentalists have a greater right to sow the seeds and ideology that actually brings harm, catastrophic and real harm to the very planet home we reside on, into our own individual lives, these pseudo lives, these lives that we are constantly have been told and we have fortified within ourselves that we are somehow better than the very planet and the ecology which sustains us. When these ideologies are in fact insane because it is self-destructive, because it destroys us universally. Which contributes to the anger, frustration, vengefulness, hate, the killing, the raping, which is what contributes to going to war, to do violence and become killers and murderers and oppressors. Because we buy into the illusion of freedom. But if we are truly to be free, we must be up here. We must be up here, self-aware, so that our emotions are enlightened and work in conjunction and solidarity with what we have up here. And that, in the core, is spirit. It is spirituality. It is evolution. It is revolution. It is pushing us forward. There we will find freedom. There we will find purpose. Because the purpose of life, of the pseudo life, is to be insane and look out for our own immediate and present well-being, and take that and escalate it and go nuclear with it. That's insanity. And how many of us understand that insanity is a core of how we get this fake illusionary life, this pseudo standard, this false standard, this false narrative? We cannot have freedom if we contribute, and we are co-conspirators, ignorant that we may be, but that's because we are ignoring, willfully ignoring realities. We are willfully unwilling to think for ourselves and thereby think globally of our own self-preservation, of our own evolution, of our own revolution, and where we actually can see the light at the end of the tunnel and see an actual future. We are the destroyers. It's not a philosophical. It's not a subjective or illusionary or accusatory. It is a fact. It's a reality. We are the destroyers because we continue to go on living. And that is what we accuse animals of being. Just going on living, of never being able to move beyond where they are. And yet, we, ironically and willfully, perpetuate this. And that is what we have. And the only way to move forward, as I said, is to start thinking clearly, critically. I criticize myself constantly. And that has allowed me to think critically, not just for myself, but for the world, the home I live on. Well, I don't live on, I exist on. Existence is not freedom. Evolution and revolution is not existence. To have just enough self-awareness to be worried about our immediate, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, week by week, month by month and year by year is not enough. That is not a life. When we only consider how our immediate families and friends in these small insular circles and how they are only really the factors, that is existence. That is a rejection. That is an ignoring, thereby ignorance of reality. We cannot be a local community. We cannot be a state community. We cannot be a federal community. We cannot be a national community. We must be a global community. And to have that, we need to have a new way or pathway, a new pathway in life. And that means we need to become globally minded and globally self-aware. And we need to stop throwing out these childish and destructive ideology of skin color or the shape of the eyes or the size of your penis or the language that is used, the words that are used by others. We have to grow out of our childhood because what we have is temper tantrums and temperament that is self-destructive. These childish ideas and childish notions that we have to conquer. Just because you may be 70 or 90 or even 100 does not make you an adult. When you reach 18 does not make you an adult. When you reach 25 does not make you an adult. When you reach physical status, when you reach the physical maturity, does not make you an adult. We are all children. We all act childishly. We all act insolently self-centered. There are philosophies that are used by these fascists, by these fundamentalists, by these insane, self-centered, self-interested few who have placed other self-centered, self-interested, insane few to profit off of the very foundations so that they can live as they feel it to be necessary. Spencer, the alt-right guy, he's contributing to it. You know, I have more respect for the kid who bought into this false ideology, this violent, self-destructive ideology, and actually ran down people at Charlottesville. I have more respect for him. Why? Because at least he took that ideology and internalized it and did some action on a disgusting ideology, a false, disgusting ideology, but he carried it out. And I respect that because that, at least for all the insane honesty, because it is, it can be honesty in insanity, in self-destruction. But he carried it out. Sean Spencer, I mean, I don't know if the guy's name is Sean. I know his last name is Spencer, but Spencer, and I'm probably mixing it up with Sean Spicer, but Spencer and clowns like him who talk, can't walk it, and won't do it. Why? Because he wants to be in the elite levels. Just like his mentor, Duke, the guy that he says he respects, and all these other cowardly people. And I question even if they are people. So basically, Spencer wants to be like the Duke, wants to be like Trump, and wants to be like all the other little fascists and fundamentalists, the ones that want to control everything and everyone, regardless of the harm that it actually does to themselves, by poisoning, allowing the poisoning of our very home, our firmament, our foundation, our core. Regardless, they forget about these self-preserving notions because they want in the present, in the now, to have control. And it's all self-appointed. So you have the Mercers, the Kochs. But there are Mercers and Kochs everywhere in the world. And then you have the ones, the bootlickers, the bootlicking fascists, the bootlicking fundamentalists. Like the ones in the Republican and Libertarian parties, which started out as a Tea Party. You got the ones like Spencer and Duke and all the other little fascists, wannabe fascists and fundamentalists who can't carry out the very things that they speak of. Why? Because they're pussies and they're cowards. Why? Because they're disingenuous, because they lie to you and they know they are lying. I least respect the ones that who carry out the actual real consequences of a filthy, self-centered, self-serving ideology, which contributes to the ones who are up above, who actually want to dictate even to these wannabe self-centered, self-destructive fascists and fundamentalists. We all have accused others of being self-centered. But the ones who are actually truly self-centered, the ones who have had the most impact on all of our lives, universally, doesn't matter where in the world you live, they have not paid consequences. So ask yourself, are you free? No, you're not. It doesn't matter if you have white privilege. It doesn't matter if you have wealth privilege. It doesn't matter if you have political privilege. It doesn't matter any of it because there is no freedom. Because we have all stayed in a static, childish, and willingly ignorant because we willingly ignore. So under this basis, when we talk about peace and equality and all that, that's all false. That's all an illusion because we need to change our fundamental core thinking and idea and thereby come to a philosophical ideology that universally serves us all. And I just do not mean the people. I'm talking about the lands and other life who commonly share our home. We're not just destroying ourselves, we're destroying other life, integral life that serves us. Yes, there is no freedom. And the fact that we vilify those, and the fact that we point the finger at those who point out these uncomfortable truths and truisms because we willfully are ignorant of it and because we ignore the reality. As I said, ignoring is a root of ignorance. So when you ignore the realities, you are willfully making yourself ignorant. So when you talk of your religion, you are contributing to the fascists and the fundamentalists, the few. And when I say the few, I'm talking less than 1,000. That's the actual number. Less than 1,000 people at the top, and even they have ranking and class. So you have the heads, the real tippity top fascist fundamentalists who want to subject their will, their life of leisure. And then you have the bootlickers. Theresa May, a bootlicker. Erdogan, a bootlicker. The premier of China, a bootlicker. Putin, a bootlicker. Paul Ryan, a bootlicker. Trump, a bootlicker. You have these televangelists, and they are wannabe fascist bootlickers, as well as being criminals. All of them are criminals. What is criminality? Criminality is something that is done to make sure that we, us all collectively, suffer in one way or another under the boot that we have bought into, that we are low conspirators. That is the situation. When you do not do anything, when you keep living in this fake freedom, when you contribute only to your immediate community and your immediate relations, you are co-conspirators. It does not matter what your limited empathy and compassion is. You are still contributors. I am a co-contributor. Why? Because I am allowing it. Because I am contributing to it in the very way that every minute, every second, every hour, every day, every month, and every year. Spencer contributes to it. Trump contributes to it. We all contribute to it because we foster it. And even the tippity top ones, they are no more than bootlickers too. Self-serving bootlickers. Because there's contention even among the supposed elite. But it boils down to is these cowards, these pussies, these animals, these monsters are projecting their ideology so that they can have the control and they can have notoriety so that they may get the scraps or rise up in the ranks. You know, the ranking, even in this fascist fundamental system, the ranking is arbitrary. Why? Because it's all based on illusion. And that illusion right now is at a dangerous tipping level because they are bought. I'll take a colloquialism. They drank the Kool-Aid. So they live in the insane asylum that is here in their minds. And they're pushing that disease, that insanity upon all. And by we accepting this insanity, this criminality, we are co-conspirators, we are attributors, we are the enablers of our own self-destruction, of our own cruelty, of our own monstrosity, and of our own monstrous acts. Because inaction is monstrous when it attacks the fundamental core of what life should be. And that is the problem with us all. We all hold it universally. Oh, we may not be as insane and as criminal, but we are still insane and we are still criminal because we contribute to it. In this video, and those that watch it will say I'm the insane one, but that's what the system is about. The system is you. Its system is me. The system is all of us contributing to our own self-destruction. In our mental, our emotional, our physical destruction. Thank you for your time.